right, awesome. So, hello, and welcome to the very first episode of Abstract Essence, the podcast where I ask people to answer the question, what is art? I'm your host, Michael Pearson. So today, our very, very first guest, we have Matias Van Order Gonzalez, who does a lot. I don't even know where to start. He has done recording and mixing for the Cart music video sessions and done production for so many artists. Celias Spooner, The Roaring Shell, Yari Superstar, Pamela, Magnetic the Shaman, and Glitter Spitter that you also play guitar for.
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing this for a little while. I'm kind of in my first year or so of doing it like full time, quote unquote. But I mean, I've been wanting to do this since I was 16. I'm 25 now, so just
how
the opportunity I got. Yeah.
How is it making that leap to full
it's
time?
Terrifying. Really, really scary. I like a lot of stress, a lot of lost sleep. It feels great though. I mean, when it works, I feel amazing. I've known for basically the first time I set foot in the studio that this is what I want to do with my life. So yeah. I mean,
when was that?
I think I was actually younger than 16. It was 15, 16. I was with my band, just like a normal high school band, and my guitar teacher was like, I have this little recording setup. It was like, I mean, it wasn't even like a big commercial studio. It was just like a little, like his home studio, not in his home. And it was just so cool to me at the time.
And were you playing guitar for that band?
Yeah, really poorly. I'm still not like a great guitarist, but yeah.
we all start bad. That's what I figured out.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
So
I think. Sorry.
No, go for it.
I just want to say, I think part of what attracted me to the studio was that I realized that you don't actually. Well, this is, I mean, not entirely true, but at the time I was like, oh, I don't have to practice that much to make things sound cool. Like I can just be in here and like do as many takes as I want.
Yeah, right.
So
just keep hitting the record button, turn some knobs.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what made you take a turn more from being, I guess, an instrumentalist towards producing, mixing, mastering, that kind of stuff? I feel like I've been maybe a little harsh on myself in that when I love music. I've always loved music. But in terms of playing instruments, I've never felt like I was all that talented. I never felt like I had a great ear for melody or anything, but I did feel like I had some sort of analytical idea of how things fit together and how things should fit together and like sound textures and things like that. Even before I got into production, well, maybe this is like me fabricating memories, but I think I've always felt that way. So yeah, I mean, it just seemed really natural to me, and it was extremely fun and inspiring the first few times I did it, and every time I do it now too. Yeah, that's awesome, man. So why don't you tell the people who are listening who have never heard of Cart before a little bit about what that is?
So Cart is the clearest thing that we do right now is a series of YouTube live session videos. And I think like in really, really broad strokes, the idea of Cart is for just the few of us who kind of are involved in everything we do to support each other in our music and to support the scene, especially in Philly because we all live here now. But, people we know, just support each other more broadly. I think the thing that we found most success with is the videos because everyone seems to want to do those, and I have a lot of fun recording them. And I think they do really help people. People have been telling us that they help them book shows and stuff like that. And, if you can show a promoter or a venue booker what you're like live, honestly, not like a jazzed up studio thing that I love doing too, but just a straight video recording. I think that's really helpful to people.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I found that's true for my own booking for sure.
Yeah.
But
I think sorry, just one other thing on Cart. I think we want to. I mean, we have a lot of ideas. We're all like young to mid 20s and a lot of hopes and dreams, I guess. And we'll see where it goes because, I mean, we want to expand and do other things. And we've tried a lot of stuff and a lot of it hasn't worked. And, we learn from trial and error. But just because we only do the video sessions now doesn't mean that's all we are going to do in 2022.
Oh, so do you have an idea of what's next? Is that something you're willing to share?
Well, I don't want to be saying things that end up not working, and then people are like, I've learned over the years to under promise and over deliver, I guess.
Okay.
But we do want to do things like get more involved in like helping ourselves and our little collective and the people we've worked with and the people we want to work with get a little traction in terms of their studio recording releases, I guess.
Okay. In terms of marketing them? Or
yeah, I mean, marketing or community or supporting, it's really unclear at this point, but we'll see where it goes, and I really hope we can expand in that way is where I'm feeling right now.
Totally awesome. I believe you guys will do it. I was watching some of those sessions this morning, and it was a lot of fun. I was watching you on the Pamela one with you and Tom back there.
Oh, that was so much fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that looked like a lot of fun. That was cool. And that was at the barn. That's in Vermont, right?
Yeah, so we started doing these in a barn in Vermont. One of my friends, who's actually the keys and other guitarist in Glitter Spitter, he has this great barn. I set up a little studio there, kind of out of necessity during the pandemic because we needed a place to be able to meet up in person, but without risking COVID. And the barn it was perfect for it because it's actually missing a wall, so it was basically outside.
Right.
But it was covered, so we could set up the studio there. And and then it turned out to be a really cool spot, and we did a bunch of video recordings there, and a lot of them with Philly artists, even though it's not in Philly. Obviously, it was way up in Vermont. And
yeah, how was it getting them to come out there? How'd that work out?
I think, well, one thing I would say, pros and cons. I think a lot of people had a great time. A lot of people wanted to get out of the city in the summer, especially, and Vermont is beautiful in the summer. I think one of the downsides, and I put some people up, it was a little awkward at my parents' house, but
right.
It was cool anyway. I think one of the downsides of that is that traveling 7 hours by car or however you get there, and then figuring out a place to sleep, it basically doesn't work for bands and artists who don't have that kind of money to spend.
Right.
And I think that's really kind of not what I want to be about, and not what I think we with CART want to be about. We want to be able to support people regardless of the amount of money they have to spend.
Right. So on that note, for the sessions that you've been doing since getting back to Philly, how much do you guys charge for this? Or is it kind of like a rolling basis type thing?
So since getting back to Philly, this is, it's a little awkward potentially. But we've changed the way we did things. We charged for them in Vermont to fund the construction of the studio because that was basically all we were doing over the summer. In Philly, we've been doing them at my house, which is where the majority of the other people involved in CART live. And we decided to stop charging at the time. Okay. There was there were some people who had some strong opinions about the fact that we were charging. I still think, I'm stubborn. I still think it's fair that we were charging. I think it would have been fair if we'd continued charging, but I think it's really nice to be able to not do that, and doing it in our house without having to move the gear, without having to build a studio specifically for it, gave us the opportunity to be able to do it for free.
Right. I mean, that makes a lot of sense in terms of, that shift. And I see charging as, whenever you're performing a service for people, at the end of the day, it's your right to charge whether or not you want to. But it's awesome that you guys were able to figure out doing that sort of for free and being able to just help artists develop those resources and stuff like that. So that's great.
Totally.
Love to hear that. All right. So let's shift topics here a little bit into the nitty gritty of what we're here for. You, as a producer, as a mixer, master, and a guitarist, how do you define art? What makes something art to you?
Okay, so this is I've been excited since you told me the topic of the podcast. I think it's a really cool idea. I think different people, I'm sure, have all kinds of different ideas about, I'm super excited to hear the other episodes because I'm really excited to hear what people have to say.
I am too. Yeah.
But for me, I think I have a little bit of a weird, maybe not the most common take, I guess. I think
Great.
And this arises out of my time studying electronic music in college and like abstract and weird avant-garde type stuff, and people who are really inspiring conceptually to me, but I don't really pursue that kind of academic music personally. So my idea of what art is that art is an experience that you have. Art is not an object. So like, I think one can have an artistic experience with something that a human didn't make. You could listen to birds as music. That's like a kind of a clear, like I guess an easy example, because a lot of people do, like they love the sound of birds, and there's melodies, and humans didn't make them, so art doesn't need to be made by humans. Conversely, I think things that people consider to be art, like just a song on the radio or a painting or whatever, like people consider these things to be objects of art. I think they're not art if you don't experience them with an artistic mindset. You can just look at a painting and look at it in the same way you look at a rock, and in that case, the person is not looking at art.
I love this answer. This is great. So you're saying art is the experience by the person who is, so I'm listening to a song, right? And I'm
exactly.
like engaging with it. And that experience right there is the art, is what you're saying.
Yeah, art is in the eye and the ear of the beholder.
Okay. Well, I have so many questions. Okay, so I want to look at it from the creator side for a second then. Where do you think the art is there? Do you think it's in the act of creation?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think creating art is obviously an artistic experience, and you're perceiving your own art while creating it too. So like as you're playing an instrument, you listen to yourself if you're supposed to, if you want to play well. And you're listening to the rest of the band if you're playing with other people. So it's it doesn't have to be perceived by another person, in my mind, to be art. I think I think you can create art, and that is an artistic experience as well, basically.
Okay.
But I don't think art exists in a vacuum. If like it's a tree falls in the forest thing, I think in this case, if no one hears it, it doesn't happen. I don't know what the actual thing is, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. Okay. So another question. I'm thinking of like another example that's a little harder than like a bird singing a song. Like
Sure.
Let's say like you're like swimming in the ocean. And it is like, to you, like a very special experience, something for whatever reason. I could say from my own life experience right now, okay? I just went to Hawaii, and I had just gone through a breakup recently, and I was sitting by the ocean, and I was breathing in and breathing out with it as the waves were coming and going. And that it felt like a release of, something that I was holding on to, whatever. Not to get too deep into that. My point is, do you, through the lens of like how you're defining it, would you consider that a moment like that to be art as well?
I would say so. I mean, yeah, I really like that. I mean, so the short answer is yes. I think one way you can think about it is a lot of art, especially kind of experimental, abstract, modern, whatever you want to call it, like the weird stuff, a lot of it is about creating an experience for people, all art is about creating an emotional or a conceptual experience or something thought-provoking. And I think, if that happens for you in nature or, I don't know, anywhere, in your house, not looking at a painting, just looking at the wall and thinking, or with your eyes closed and you're imagining your own colors and sounds and stuff, I think that's art. One thing I really like to, this is my experience. I studied this kind of abstract electronic music in college. So people like John Cage, really pushing the boundaries of music, making I think the silent piece is, if you've heard of this, it's called 433. It's just a person sits at a piano, doesn't play anything for 4 minutes and 33 seconds, and that is the piece of music. And it's kind of a joke. I think to him it was kind of a joke too, but
the point of the music is, or the point of the piece is to get people to focus on the sounds that are naturally occurring in the room and to listen to them in a musical way. And I think you don't have to have a composer to write that piece to have that experience. If you have that experience, it's an artistic experience.
Okay, that's interesting. So I feel like I'm on board with what you're saying here. So I'm curious as to if you think it's possible to think of the definition in a sort of a exclusatory mindset in terms of things that definitely aren't art.
Okay.
You know, what makes something not art then?
Well, this is kind of why I like to think about it in this way, is because every time someone's like, this thing is definitely not art, I'm like extremely suspicious, because like people are like, Justin Bieber is definitely not art, but I mean, people love Justin Bieber. I think, there are things I love about Justin Bieber's music. Or like people were like, in the 20s, people were like, jazz is definitely not art. Obviously that's, stupid in retrospect. But I think every time someone says something is definitely not art, they end up sounding stupid. So I think anything can be art. This is why I like thinking of it this way. Anything you want to be art can be art if you think about it or listen to it or see it in an artistic way with an artistic mindset. Or if it doesn't even have to be like an intentionally artistic mindset. It can just be something that touches you emotionally, or that provokes some thoughts in a kind of loose and free manner, which I think is a thing that art does very well.
Okay. So with this in mind, you as a producer working with other artists and helping to support their vision, where do you think, or how do you think, I guess, that this definition of art affects that? Your perception of that?
Yeah, I think, one way it relates to it, I guess, is I think in my production work, I like to, when I'm collaborating with other people directly, I like to just allow them as much freedom as possible. It's kind of a, Brian Eno inspired thing, but like, any option is on the table. And
right.
I will say no to people in certain circumstances. If I have a sense that I understand the goals that they're trying to reach. So like if they're trying to create a pop song and they're like, I think we should have 3 bass parts all happening in the same register simultaneously. That's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I think I really like, maybe we could figure out a way to do it. If you distort one and only keep the high end, and it's playing the low notes, but you only keep the high end of one bass, and then you have the low end of the other bass, and the other one is only playing on the off beats, and the one's playing on the down beats. Like, you could make it work. So, like, I think my feeling as of my role as a producer is, like, I'm a facilitator, basically. I want to help people achieve their artistic goals, and if their artistic goals are to add 3 basses to a pop song, we can try to figure it out. I think there's a reason why that almost never happens, but
Yeah.
No, so I'm really into the freedom thing, basically.
I feel what you're saying. I've been doing some producing with other artists lately, and it's weird because there are some things where you're working on them and it's like, oh, this is a collaboration where it's like both of us sort of as equals making this thing together. And there's other things where it's like you're helping them to record, to execute their vision. Maybe you're helping write some parts or something like that, but it's more like their song, their piece of art or work, whatever that you're helping to make. And in those two different situations, I find myself struggling with my own personal feelings about a certain like artistic creative decision, in terms of saying no or leaning into it. My buddy comes over, we're working on this song, and he didn't even tell me. It was just supposed to be a mixing session that day. We were done recording, busts out his saxophone and was like, Mikey, I brought over the saxophone. Like, we're going to throw it on. And I said, okay. And then, I was down with it. I didn't know what mic setup to use. I wasn't ready for it, but I just, we figured it out. And, he was working on this one sax line and we recorded it. And at one point I just had to like look at him and be like, man, we're not using that. We're like, write something else.
Yeah.
And, you know, that moment right there, like, in terms of just like your relationship with whoever you're working with, and you know, I don't know, not wanting to like crush an idea, but like putting your foot down. It's a weird thing to have to do. I find it very difficult.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think I like to be as, I don't know. I mean, I say I like to give people freedom. I think obviously there comes a time when you need to, you know, move things along. And I mean, I guess it's just like for the good of the project. You know, if people are getting hung up on something that as the producer with your kind of slightly detached overall view, you realize that we're spending 5 hours on one lead line that might not work because the original one was better. Like, yeah, I mean, you should move things along and keep the process moving, because that's going to be what's good for the project. But I think this is something that one of my favorite producers, Andrew Sarlo, who did a lot of the Big Thief stuff, said on a podcast I listened to recently. Is, I think, is it whatever? It was someone, I don't know if it was Andrew Sarlo, that in the beginning people tend to have a really clear, like, pure idea of what they're going for. Like, right after writing the song, or, you know, writing the first verse or something, they have a feeling about what the song should be. And even if they don't have strong feelings about the arrangement or whatever, they have a strong sense of the vibe or whatever. And if, as a producer, you can get in touch with that and kind of figure out what they value about the song and how they want to grow it, and this original concept, I think you can allow that original concept to be as weird and free and whatever as you want, and you can do crazy things to get there. But I think another kind of job of the producer is to say no when you realize that there's other reasons why someone's spending 5 hours on one little part. Maybe they're afraid of finally putting out in the world and they want to just delay it, or they think that they're being a perfectionist, but they're, you know, a lot of it comes from insecurity, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I think, I mean, people talk about it all the time, but there's a lot of kind of, you know, loose psychology to being a producer too.
Yeah, that's actually hilarious that you brought that up, because I've been thinking about that so much lately. I've been recording with my roommate Josh. His music's going to be under Lazy Acres, but anyways, he's recording, let's say, a lead line for a song, a lead guitar part, whatever, and he's doing the whole song through. We're not doing any punch-ins at this point, and he messes up this one part, and I could tell that he's just overthinking it, and he keeps messing it up. So I wait till he does one like, okay, and I'm like, okay, man, you totally got that part. Now, the entire time you're playing, I told him to think about this one part at the very end of the song and make sure that he didn't get it wrong, just so he wouldn't overthink that other part that was right before it. And it totally worked. And he just like floats perfectly right into it. And I was like, oh, the producer like psychology tricks are so fun, like, and interesting. I don't know.
It is. That's genius. Honestly, I love the we totally got it. One more for safety, and then that's normally the one because they are like, we already have it. The pressure's off. You know.
That is normally the one. I'm just like, all right, like, guys, like, just go wild, like, do literally anything on this take, and you know, usually I will only say that when we already have something good, but that's, I think, when a lot of the magic comes out, which is fun.
Totally. Yeah, it's weird. It's so easy to overcook something and do, like, I mean, you know, 8 or 9 takes, and then it depends, obviously, case by case basis. But yeah, you have to strike a balance, and I think a lot of it is putting the artist at ease, and this weird combination of the freedom thing, which is what I was talking about before, and the keeping the process moving along, and like kind of understanding what needs to be done on the day or over the course of a week or whatever to get the project to the point where everyone wants it to be, and to not get like stuck in the mud somewhere where, you know, if you do spend a couple hours on one little thing, everyone in the room is going to lose inspiration, and then after that no one's going to want to do anything, and if you do force yourself to do something, it's not going to be an inspired thing,
and new ideas are not going to arise. So it's like there's competing forces at play, and I think the best producers kind of know how to work with that. And I'm not saying that I necessarily do that all the time.
We all just do our best, you know.
Yeah.
So this is making me thinking back to how you were defining art earlier, looking at the experience of working with someone, let's say in a recording session or recording or producing for someone else, and you look at that as an artistic experience, right? Which I think, you know, based on what we were just talking about, in a lot of circumstances it is, you know, like in terms of helping the other person get the right takeout or like, you know, going through that process. So I'm totally loving thinking about it this way. But I'm now thinking from your perspective, what makes a certain session not feel like an artistic experience? You know what I mean? Like what makes, from the producer point of view, what makes a session not as good, I guess? You know what I mean?
I see. Yeah. Well, in a lot of cases, I mean, if the artist is happy, I'm happy. Even if I'm literally not happy, like I've been, you know, on the 2-hour session that became an 8-hour session, and I didn't have a chance to eat, and I'm like, wow, this is. Can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah, yeah. Fuck it. Why not?
Regardless, it's fucking horrible. Yeah. And you're just sitting there, and you're like, okay, I mean, you press record when it's time, and and like whatever. So that doesn't feel good. But if the artist is doing great stuff, then like I'm artistically satisfied, even if I'm starving and in a terrible mood.
Right.
But yeah, what makes a bad session? I mean, I really view myself as a facilitator. There are some things that I kind of get artistically attached to, and sometimes that's dangerous. Sometimes not. I mean, for my own band that I produce as well and record, that's the place where I allow myself to be very attached, and it's still a collaboration, obviously, with my band members, but that's you know, a place where my vision holds a little more sway than just me helping someone achieve their vision, essentially.
Can you expand what you mean when you're saying, when you're talking about being attached, like in terms of like, let's say somebody else's session that's not your music, like, are you saying that it's like an idea that they have and you're like, oh, I really like that, but then they don't follow through on it? Or
I mean, I think, no, not necessarily. What I mean is, like, if I have a strong feeling about how a certain band should be, I think that's not always useful, because it's really more important how they feel that they should be, and for me to help them get there, because they know themselves better than I know them, even if I'm very perceptive and, you know, have been listening to them a lot and everything. I think that people are more self-aware than we often get credit for. So I think people kind of, they know the things they need to work on. They know the things that they're great at. They might not know how to maximize that potential, I guess, which is you know, where people like me come in, and you. But I don't think I don't want to be in a position where I have a vision for a band's record that I am putting on them, basically, which is why, like, I don't want to get attached to the snare sound. If the drummer's like, I really want my snare to be super high endy and not have any, you know, low end, and I'm like, that's gonna totally mess up the way I thought I was gonna mix this record. I think it's on me to figure out a new way to mix the record. You know,
I very much appreciate, this is a very mature take as a producer. I feel like I personally needed to hear what you just said.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's definitely something I've learned with time. I'll just say that, because you get into trouble a lot if you get attached. I think, you know, the Buddhists have it right.
The Buddhists have it right. Wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah.
So we're running towards the end of our time here, but before you go, I wanted to talk a bit more about Barry's Abode, the studio that I think you're actively putting it together right now. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm signing the lease tomorrow, ideally.
Congrats.
And then I'm going to be moving in February. Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm currently in the current version of Barry's Abode, which is just like a little room in my basement. It's really quite small, but we've done quite some cool stuff here. I'm really excited to move into a new place. I'm investing a fair amount of money for me and a good chunk of time, like 10 days, to build some like real pro sound treatment and live room divided from a control room setup. Like,
oh, that's awesome.
Big space, drum riser, mics that don't come down, so it's easy. So I don't have to move the entire room around every time I want to record a band. So I think for me, it's going to be a huge improvement. I think sonically, it's going to be a huge improvement. I think people are going to be more comfortable there too. I'm just really excited about the new space.
Wow, well, that's exciting. So it'll be mid-February, ready to go. Is that the goal?
Yeah. It's not just the goal. I already have a bunch of sessions booked starting on February 12th. So if I don't have it built by then, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah,
awesome.
It'll happen. Yeah.
As we're wrapping up here, is there anything else you wanted to say, or let the people know?
Let the people know. I mean, I want to let the people know this is going to be an awesome podcast. You should listen to Slowzy. You should listen to the Pamela Slowzy collab that will be coming out. I hope I'm not spoiling that. I'm sorry if I am.
Oh no, it's okay. I'm so excited about that. Actually, it's literally all I've been working on lately. It's very, very good.
Nice. Yeah. I've been hearing some snippets. It sounds really, really good. I'm excited for that one.
Thanks, man. On that note, we're going to wrap it up here. So to all the people out there listening, thanks for listening to this first episode. It's been a great time. I honestly couldn't have asked for a better guest. Have a good rest of your day. I'm going to figure out a better way to end this podcast by the time I record the next one. So that's that.